Mr. Mark Selby, how are you, sir?
Good, Gordon. Welcome to Canada.
Well, thank you very much. And good point, actually. I think if people are slightly irritated by the sound quality, it's not me, it's not you. I'm at a conference and there's people wandering around everywhere. In fact, there's a large klaxon might even go off after this. So, like Pavlov's dog, you now need to change rooms. Right, we're going to talk nickel today because you're about to go on your own roadshow and you're doing Timmins and then Sudbury and meeting lots of interesting people as well. But first, we've got to try and understand what's happening in the nickel market. Where are we today?
Yeah, so along with copper, we've had a big, after the great big move we saw most of the month of May, things don't go up in a straight line forever. So nickel, copper hit highs at $5 a pound, $11,000 a ton. Nickel, got almost all the way up to $22,000 a ton, which again, given all the doom and gloom 3 months ago, we're in a much better place. So nickel's fallen back down to just over 19,000. Again, what I've been saying the last few weeks is, we should see prices come back off to that $20,000 ton level. It's still up 30% off the lows in February. So I think, we're in good shape here. We might see a little quick drop below 19 because the thing right now is when we'll talk a little bit more in a sec, I think nickel, there's a lot of reasons to believe that, we'll be pretty well supported to here. On the copper side, and as I said a few weeks ago, as it was hitting $11,000 a ton, people talking about it going up, to crazy new highs. Reality is the Shanghai inventories are higher than they've been since 2020. The price is at its 50-day moving average, and so if copper breaks down through there, it may pull nickel down there for a few days. But I think any drop below 19,000 will be relatively short-lived.
Yeah, I think so. I was actually doing a panel about half an hour ago with the legends session. Would you believe we've got legends in the world of mining, folks? I'm sure it's not a different word that you'd like to apply, but one of the copper guys, where he said, he's quite adamant about this. He said, look, if copper was at $10 today, it's still too late, folks. It's still too late. We're not going to be able to produce. So there was a constant commentary on the fact that production across the board, whether it be nickel, whether it be copper, whether it be silver, whatever the metal, we have not been paying attention. Government has been poor to engage, and it seems rather too late. Now that has, for investors, a rather wonderful knock-on effects, for a period of time, and we seem to be winging our way to that point soon. So that's good news for us. Less good for the populace at large and infrastructure build-outs, etc. But there we go. So you feel that, and we talked about it before, that whole kind of green metals will kind of react and behave in a similar way for a period.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this we talked about, I think last week or 2 weeks ago. The fact that last time we set record high copper prices, we were also, at par between the commodity currencies and the US dollar. Yeah, today, the Canadian dollar is about 72 cents, the Aussie dollar is in the mid 60s. And so, so in terms of the commodity currency terms, we broke the record a long time ago. And so, those are signaling to those commodity producing countries that, hey, you need to start producing more metal. Now, again, the key piece here is going to be the subsequent supply response. And so, just in the near term, why I think nickel 19 should hold only briefly. So with the sell off of the last week, we've come off a couple $1,000s a ton, about 10%, which is about what copper's come off. What's interesting is the prices down the chain, sulphate prices for batteries, that price went up. Stainless steel prices also edged up after being weak for a while. And so, if the commodity price is falling, but the price that people are willing to pay to actually buy the products they use is moving in the other direction, that says, okay, whatever sell-off there should be relatively limited. Where you need to panic is the commodity price falls and the price for the stuff that people actually use fall even faster. So, nickel's definitely not in that camp. I think what we're seeing there is going to be supportive. We've seen LME and Shanghai inventories drop a little bit. So again, this whole thing from the early in the year about, nickel everywhere, again, not true. On the copper side, though, as I said, copper inventories in Shanghai, are at record levels. A lot of the premium arbs and so forth that you look at, are all in the wrong direction. And so, I wouldn't be surprised to see copper, drop below 10,000, go back into the $9,000 a ton level. The two things people forget with copper is there's a lot of copper scrap. And again, the biggest mine in a lot of metals is the scrap mine. And so copper is one of those things where once you get into this $4 to $5 plus range, there is a lot of scrap that can make its way into the market. And again, it's very difficult to see it, but you do see it pop up in things like Chinese smelter and Chinese refined nickel production. And the other part was most of mainland China doesn't have a lot of copper. Sorry, it does in Tibet, right? And so they've now opened up a bunch of copper mines in Tibet. And so, again, I think people kind of neglect the fact that it's not just Chile, Peru, and Congo. There are other places, and particularly China, that can turn it on a little bit. So, again, I think prices are going to be a lot higher for longer because of this, this cyclical underinvestment in new capacity that we've just gone through. But don't blow your brains out. Don't think copper's going to $8 or $9. Nickel I'm bullish on. Again, we should get to the mid 20s or more, but I don't think we're going to be triple from here at this point.
Right. Well, exciting times. Lots of conversation here at the conference about where all of this is going. In a week where we've seen, certainly last week, we saw most of the metals going to reset slightly. I say that 10% or so. Now, the question is,
just one thing before we get to the company news. Like the one thing, the other piece in terms of nickel is we've actually seen a bunch of stories this past week and a half in terms of Philippine ore being imported into Indonesia, right? So again, if the world's largest ore supply place, isn't supplying enough ore for the plants locally and they have to import it, and generally it's lower grade, lower quality from the Philippines than what they're used to using in Indonesia, again, that's pretty good sign that, generally supply is constrained. And we've talked about Indonesia, effectively looking to manage nickel supply like OPEC. And so seeing more visible signs of that. So again, I think that's, that should start to really help to limit the downside here.
Super interesting. Well, I think we just found the headline. Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, look, in all of this, as you say, we're going to get onto company news. We need to understand how companies react and take advantage of this situation, position themselves nicely for that kind of setup. So you got a bit of news yourself actually this morning.
Yeah, so we put out 11 holes from our Delaware project. Again, this is all from the exploration funding that we received from Agnico Eagle. We're planning to drill 90 to 100,000 meters this year, and by this time next year deliver 7 additional resources. So very happy with this project. Again, just 8 kilometers south of Timmins. It has, less than 9 meters overburden, about, less than a third of what we have at Crawford. And it's still, it's not as big as Crawford, but it's still over a kilometer long by 700 meters wide. And we drilled down to about 300 meters. So, you do that math multiplied by 2.6, and you can easily see 500 million tons of resource and 1 million tons nickel. We'll have a resource out in July, and fingers crossed it should deliver there. And again, you'll see a steady stream of news flow. We've got 7 drill rigs turning right now, 5 exploration and 2 others. So I think in terms of drilling for nickel, in the Western world, we've got a pretty good share of the global drilling footprint going on right now.
Yeah, yes, you have. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. How do you name these companies? The Delaware project doesn't sound very Canadian.
That those are all townships in Timmins. It's sort of been a the Kidd Creek mine, which has been operating for 50 years. That's in Kidd Township. There's Hoyle Pond, a gold mine that's been in Hoyle Township. So we're just kind of following along with the sort of Timmins regional sort of name it from the township. So very.
I thought there was a sponsorship opportunity coming on.
Well, since we've just used the township names, we might be able to put a Deloro brought to you by So
yeah, let's do it. Let's make that a thing. Right, and we've got to move on. Next company, Power Nickel. I had Terry in here this morning. Very, very lively conversation, and it's not surprising, really.
Yeah, no, some good infill holes. They've got they were drilling for nickel copper, and they've really now hit copper PGMs with a little bit of nickel. Some pretty juicy grades, and extending at a lower grade level across some decent mineable widths. So the key here is, and in their press release, they've got some good graphics to show you exactly what the orientation of the ore body is. So again, it's the kind of stuff that more companies should do, so you really get a sense of what the shape of what they're looking at is. So the key thing here, I think, to get them to the next level is being able to extend beyond the current drilling at depth to see what happens as you go deeper, and then looking to see along, they've got a whole set of structures where they could potentially find more of these. So, hopefully they've got a few more targets and be able to see if they can replicate, the success they've got here. Because, any times you get multi-percent copper with, a third of an ounce of, PGMs, that's, those are always pretty good grades, right? So,
absolutely. It really is, and it's interesting to see how he's going to develop that out. And I think he kind of got into the conversations around strategics and so forth. So do watch that. We'll put a link to that in this in the description below. Magna Metals. We've talked this year about companies coming out with different ways of creating sort of non-dilutory inflows of cash. Looks like Magna might have done something like that.
Yeah, so they've been talking about doing basically a exploration bulk sample, but it given the grades they have, should generate a little bit of cash and help defray the cost of doing that work. And so they just announced that they're going to toll mill some of that material with Glencore. So those properties, I think, had some sort of Vale ties originally. So it was good to see them, have the opportunity to be able to use the other facility in the region. And that suggests that things are competitive in terms of feed, which they should be, given that, both the mine output of both those companies is struggling a little bit in Sudbury these days. So, again, good news from Magna and a nice step forward towards generating some cash flow.
Yeah, like that. We want everyone to succeed. We need it all, guys. And then Talon Metals, we're regular on this show.
Good step out, high grade Raptor zone. They're looking for sort of more higher grade lenses in the area. So, some nice shiny core they showed in pictures. They haven't have assays yet on that, but that was good to see. And then the other one that's another Sudbury is SPC nickel. So they had some, it's an open pitable resource, some nice shallow drill intersections before, and now they're actually channel sampling, which means it's sitting at surface, or just very, very near surface. So the highlight there was almost 1% nickel and almost 0.5% copper over 17 meters. So, some good results there. Again, we'll see sort of in terms of what they're going to do to raise it. They raised a few $1 million and upsized the raise last week. So again, good to see, and we need more near-term production. So we'll keep an eye on that one for sure.
For sure. And then the last one of the day, I think in fact, it'll be my last one of the day today as well, which is Fathom Nickel.
Yeah. So Fathom, they've got, I think we talked about it before. We haven't talked too often about it, but just for context, there was a small high-grade deposit that was mined back in the 1940s or 50s. Not particularly large, but pretty high grade. And the name of it is escaping me. But anyways, they've got that, Rotten Stone was the name of the high grade thing. So
see what I mean? There's a sponsorship opportunity here, really.
Oh, exactly. So they picked up the land package around it, and so doing some drilling, some pretty interesting results. Again, 7% at 1.4 nickel, 0.4 copper, and cobalt and so forth. So again, interesting. I say some nice smoke. Hopefully they'll can dig into some fire that will provide them the scale to be able to push that forward. So again, we don't get too many north of 1% intersections, so good to see, and another one to keep an eye on going forward.
Absolutely. And do you know what's interesting to me is the fact that the companies who got good management teams, good assets, and trying to do things the right way have been able to kind of keep the story moving forward. And the ones who perhaps are jumping on bandwagons or jumping off of bandwagons and definitely flitting around, we're not hearing of so much because they perhaps burnt through money in not so wise ways. And I it's kind of what you'd expect to see. And I'm actually quite personally pleased to see, because it maybe helps people identify ways of investing in terms of investment strategies. If you see certain behavior, maybe step back a bit, maybe
Yeah,
don't
no,
get in. So
one of the legends in this industry, a guy named Doug Silver, I think who you
oh yeah,
probably met
great guy.
before.
Yep.
Doug is a biologist by background, and so one of his things that he's doing work on while he's retired is basically he thinks of mining companies as ecosystems, and so in any to keep a population of any sort of creature alive, you need a certain amount of food, and that sustains a certain population. So he's
Yep.
looking at basically trying to understand what sort of the sustaining food for a certain number of mining companies, and the challenge is if food is scarce, which we've been we've been through a number of famines almost back to back seemingly for the last little while here. So again, in those kind of scenarios, it does, the population does dwindle in those kind of scenarios. So that, to your point there, it's exactly
Is that a metaphor for reintroducing wolves into an ecosystem? That's what just happens. Don't worry, folks. It'll look good in the end, but in the meantime, there will be some death. Mark, brilliant, and thank you very much, because I know that you are on your way up to Timmins. Is it Timmins you're going to?
Yep.
Yeah. What are you doing up there?
The minister's coming by our site. George Peary's been a great proponent, but he's actually never stepped foot inside our property. So this week is Timmins Mine Expo. If you ever need any proof that Timmins is one of the world's great mining camps, the show that goes on there is, I think there's PDAC and DABA, and there'd be few other maybe diggers and dealers in Australia, but there's very few conferences that have the breadth and depth of mining supply that we have in Timmins. And then so there's a series of presentations up there in Timmins, and it's a big event for the people operating in Northeast Ontario and Quebec. So that's where I'll be spending the bulk of this week.
Fantastic. It's there's a movie called The Firm where it's called Tom Cruise in it, and basically it's, I think, let him up there into the property, but don't let him leave unless he gives you what you want. I'm not sure it worked out in the movie, but it's just an idea.
Okay.
Mark, appreciate your input as always today. And I tell you interesting, I think there's so many CEOs who watch your show to get information about what they should be doing with their companies and where they should be investing their money. So a voice for the industry, and absolutely, highly regarded. So there you go, bit of praise coming your way.
Thanks for that.
It's rare in this space, CEO. Yep. So take it when you can. Mark, we'll see you soon.
All right.
Ciao.
Thanks, Matthew.